Good morning, good afternoon to our colleagues and friends joining us from different countries. It's a great pleasure to open the 9th European workshop on the seismic behavior of irregular and complex structures, this time, and for the first time, an online event. It is organized at the Instituto Superior Técnico, IST, University of Lisbon, under the sponsorship of Working Group 8 of European Association of Earthquake Engineering. My name is Rita Bento, and I'm the chair of the workshop. So I'm now delighted to invite the head of Department of Civil Engineer, Architecture, and Earth Resources of IST, University of Lisbon, Professor Saldanha Matos.
Okay, thank you very much. Dear President of the European Association of Earthwork Engineering, Professor Kyriazis, dear Secretary General of the Association, Professor Andreas Kappos.
Professor, cannot hear you. We start with these small problems. I apologize for this. I suggest probably we can just move on and then waiting a little bit more that Professor Saldanha Matos will join us again. So I'm honored to invite the President of European Association of Earthquake Engineering, Professor Kyriazis Pitilakis.
Dear colleagues and participants, living in very strange times, unbelievable strange times, that no one of us has ever thought that it could happen in our lives. Maybe we were too complacent that history is following always a straight line, which is not true. It is actually making circles. And we also believed that we were very well armored technologically to encounter this global pandemic situation, which is not true. Hopefully, it seems that some light at the end of the tunnel is now, and probably we have to be more wise in terms of prevention. But it happened, and we have to adapt it with this. Among the sectors that have been seriously affected is the sector of the scientific events, like the conference, the workshops. And we are aware that this happened everywhere. For example, you are aware what happened with the World Conference last year. And we don't know even now that it will be finally organized next June or maybe in September. We don't know still. They said in September, but it is not for sure. As regards the European Association of Earthquake Engineering, we have also been seriously affected. The organization of regional seminars and other activities are temporarily frozen. An important event that we had last May on the induced seismicity organized in the Netherlands has been at the last moment hopefully postponed, but in any way it is a problem. The next European Conference of Earthquake Engineering and Seismology to be held in Bucharest in 2022 is still under discussion regarding the optimum dates. And why this? Because a lot of events have been postponed for the 21st and the 22. So it will be a pity to have a lot of a conference the same period of our European conference. So in the executive committee, we are discussing how to optimize this point. And of course, the work of several working groups have been also delayed. Fortunately, there are some really brave colleagues like Professor Rita Bento and her colleagues, and not only in Portugal, but in other European countries that remained standing and decided to organize this important event in the new form of a webinar. The webinar will never substitute in real person workshops and conference for many good reasons that we all know. However, it is a solution. And as the French are saying, à la guerre comme à la guerre. And considering these difficulties, on behalf of the European Association of Earthquake Engineering, we are really grateful to Rita and all of you for making this event happen. The experience that will be gained through this webinar will be undoubtedly very successful, but in particular, it will be very interesting for what we are organizing in the next year, again under the coordination of Rita. It is the working group activities number 12 of the European Association of Earthquake Engineering on the continuing education and professional development. We are planning to organize a series of webinars on the ongoing revision of the Eurocode 8, which has more or less finalized. It is more or less completed, and it is the perfect time to diffuse what has been already proposed and will be the next European code, let's say. And this will be done through a number of webinars, about 10 or 12, I don't remember exactly the number, which will be delivered by very experienced and, of course, in a voluntary basis, persons who have been already involved in the ongoing revision of the Eurocode. Each one will last about 1 hour, and there will be, of course, an online material available and distributed through the European Association of Earthquake Engineering. The program will be finalized as far as it has been decided in the Executive Committee early next year, and it will be diffused by the proper means and channels. So I wish once more to congratulate you, Rita, your group, all the organizing committee, the keynote lecturers, and the participants for this challenging endeavor. On behalf of the European Association of Earthquake Engineering, we wish you a successful event. And of course, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Thank you, Rita.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Pitilakis, for your kind words and for your support. Okay, so now we have again Professor Saldanha Matos with us. Please, Professor Saldanha Matos.
Thank you. Sorry for this interruption. Well, we need some resilience in all these events and conferences. So I was saying that Lisbon is a very interesting and charming city, and we'll be delighted if you might also have the possibility one day to enjoy the touristical visits and to visit the historical monuments, and of course other opportunities will come in the future. IST, the School of Engineering of the University of Lisbon, is the largest and more prestigious school of engineering in Portugal. The Department of Civil Engineering, Architecture, and Resources is the largest at the ST, with 130 professors, more or less, assistant professors, associate and full professors, not just civil engineers as background, but also colleagues from social science, environmental engineering, economics, architecture, and with other backgrounds. And this ecosystem is very productive. You know that the civil engineering at the university is very well classified in the international rankings, in the Shanghai ranking, first in Portugal, 7 in Europe, 14 in top 10. So of course it's a department with some complexity, with some challenge in terms of management, but it's a very productive department. It includes 7 scientific areas, being the structural and structural mechanics area, one of the largest and oldest. The others just in civil engineering are construction, hydraulics, environment and water resources, regional and urban systems, and geotechnics. And the group leading with seismic engineering and its risks at the university is also one of the most well-established and mature in the department. So I will not extend my speech. So once more, just to congratulate Rita Bento and the organizing and the scientific committee of the conference, and wishes of a fruitful and very productive conference. Thank you very much. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Professor Saldanha Matos. So it's now my honor, my privilege to welcome the Secretary General of European Association of Earthquake Engineering, Professor Andreas Kappos.
Thank you very much, Rita. We engineers are, we like visualization, so I prepared just a very few slides to illustrate, to give me the permission to share my screen to show a few slides. I think that Kyriazis more or less covered some of the issues I wanted to raise. As Secretary General of the European Association, I would like to say just a very few words about the association. Actually, I would refer you to the website. I'm sure that most of you are aware of the current website, which we're planning, by the way, to improve, but this is still underway. The address is very simple. Even if you don't remember it, you can just Google it. And on the website, you can find several things. I will focus, since this workshop is organized by one of the active working groups of the European Association, I will focus on the work of the working groups. Okay, so we had a number of groups, up to 12. The active ones, I mean, some of them have been discontinued due to idleness, but most of them have discontinued just because they have finished their work. The currently active ones are Working Group 1, which is coordinated by Edmund Booth on future direction for Eurocode 8 and has made some interesting contributions in this direction. What is after the new version of the Eurocode 8. Then it is Working Group 11, Working Group 8, which of course I don't have to introduce it to this audience. Then we have Working Group 10, which is coordinated by Professor Vinzileu on seismic aspects of historical monuments and preservations. It is Working Group 11, the one I have the honor to coordinate with the help of Professor Sextos and Professor Luigi Di Sarno on seismic design, assessment, and retrofit of bridges. And we have, as Kyriazis already said, Working Group 12, recently established but quite active, unsurprisingly because it is led by Rita, which is continuous education and professional development. Okay, so this was a picture until the beginning of this year. Then in this year, we have launched 2 new groups. And to those of you interested in these topics, actually in any of these topics, feel free to contact the corresponding coordinators and ask whether it would be possible for you to contribute. So the new group, Working Group 13, is Seismic Assessment, Design and Resilience of Industrial Facilities. It is led by Professor Paolacci. And then the final one is Dissemination of Structural Testing Data, which is led by another very active female member of our executive committee, which is Katrin Bayer from EPFL. Okay, so this is the most of the current work, apart of course from the conference, is done in the frame of these working groups. It is good that Kyriazis already mentioned the webinar, so I don't have to repeat this, just to alert you, to make a note that starting in May or perhaps June at the earliest, we will start with these webinars, one on each major part of Eurocode 8. Okay, and the final thing, of course, is the conference, another major activity of the association. As Kyriazis said, nothing has been finalized yet due to the problem of the pandemic. So the dates for the conference will be finalized in January 2021. My guess is that it is a 50-50 thing, 50% to hold it as initially planned and 50% to postpone it for the next year. But bear with us. I mean, we have to review the situation and we will take it from there. Now, since in addition to the Secretary General of the Association, I'm also a past organizer of this workshop, let me finish with a minute of nostalgia, if I may, which is perhaps appropriate for these times that we can see each other only through the screen of Zoom. So this is 15 years ago. This is the 2005 for the European workshop of irregular and complex structure, which was held in Thessaloniki. It was a major challenge for me and for my younger colleagues who helped me to organize it, because we didn't have really any support from any professional organization. I did it with, let's say, 4 or 5 good PhD students and a few others that helped, including my own family. So I'm sure you recognize these guys who have contributed a lot to this group. This was the chair of the opening session, and then the next day we had another composition of the chairing panel. And I mentioned it because I will never forget what this guy here, who is of course Victor Rutenberg, what he told me. Oh, you want me to chair this one as well? Then you have to pay me more. Okay, and then of course, as in this conference, we had a beautiful night at a fish restaurant, as you see, next to the sea. And again, you will recognize some people that you know very well. So this is from me, finishing with this touch of nostalgia and giving my best wishes for a very successful workshop. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Kappos. Very nice to remind all these past times. So it's now my pleasure to welcome the coordinator of Working Group 8 of European Association of Earthquake Engineering, Professor Mario Stefano.
Thank you, Rita. I like to start my brief talk by thanking the Instituto Superior Técnico of the University of Lisbon for hosting this workshop, and particularly you, Rita, for really for excellent and brave organizational work that we have done with other members of the organizing committee. Actually, I also like to thank Professor Pitilakis and Professor Kappos, the President and the Director General of the European Association of Earthquake Engineering, for attending the opening ceremony and for giving us a lot of interesting informations. I particularly thank Andreas also for the pictures that he was showing, and they gave me a lot of emotions. And it was a very successful workshop that was organized in 2005 in Thessaloniki by Andreas. So this workshop constitutes the main activity of WG8, along with the subsequent publication, editing and publication of a book for Springer that will collect revised and upgraded versions of the papers that are presented here these 2 days. Seismic behavior, I would say also design of irregular and complex structures, is one of the main topics of earthquake engineering. The studies in this area date as far back as 1938, when IRE published a paper on the on translational and torsional vibration of buildings on the Bulletin of Seismological Society of America. 1958 was important work by Hausner Rautinen that were showing how potentially disastrous can be plane irregularities. And after that work, the main seismic code have provided some specifications to deal with irregular buildings. We will see also that I believe that seismic codes are still in need of improvement regarding specification for irregular buildings. And of course, in the 70s, great research efforts were devoted to elastic behavior of irregular buildings. Then the 80s shifted to inelastic and then behavior. then to multi-story, concrete, masonry, then also irregular buildings, base isolated buildings, or with dissipative, protected with dissipative systems. Then the area of research extended also to rotational input ground motion that can also trigger torsional behavior, and extended also to bridges and other types of special structures. So the field of interest is very wide, and because the types of irregularities are very different, are numerous and very different. And the concept of irregularities itself, I like to say, is a fuzzy concept. Cannot be fully defined, clearly defined. The boundaries of this concept cannot be clearly defined, and there is still a lot of research work to be done. And I want to mention that in these years we have held the past 27 years, we have held 9 editions, 9 workshops. So I'm particularly grateful again to Rita for helping us to keep the tradition of having a workshop each 3 years. We started in Capri in 1996, then Istanbul 1999, Florence 2002, Catania, Thessaloniki 2005, and I'm happy that Andreas is here. Catania 2008, and I see that there is a group of researchers from Catania. I believe there is also Gersi and his research associates. Then we had IFA in 2011, and Oren Lavan is attending. Bucharest 2000, Opole 2014, and Zbigniew Zebat is attending this workshop, and I thank all of them, as well as Dietrinde Kober, who organized the Bucharest workshop in 2017, and then we got now to 2020 with Rita. I want to mention that the first 5 workshops were held under the coordinatorship, I would say, of Professor Rutenberg, Victor Rutenberg. Victor Rutenberg, who has been the founder of this working group. I talked to Victor a few days ago, and actually Victor told me that he is in rather good health, but he has a hearing problem, so he could not really attend this online meeting. So, but he told me that he's very pleased that we are continuing working in this area and keeping the tradition of the workshop. And of course, he wishes all participants to the very successful and productive workshop. So I think that really just a few words about the program that we have. We will have 2 interesting keynote lectures, invited lectures by outstanding speakers like Umberto Varum, who will talk about irregularities in RC buildings. And tomorrow we'll have in a second invited lectures by Professor Andrea Penna, who will talk about seismic response of masonry building aggregates. We will have 25 papers that will be presented during this 2-day workshop. And so I want to thank all participants and all authors and speakers. I want just to mention that we don't have only European participants. We will have participants from several extra European countries. I made a list, but maybe I skipped, but from Mexico, from Colombia, from Iran, from Israel, from Japan. So we have also attendance from extra European countries, which is continuous tradition. You saw Professor Zo in the picture that Andreas was showing. There were Professor Zo and Professor Andrei Reiner, in addition to myself, himself and Professor Rutenberg. So I think that I can just conclude my introduction with wishing all participants and to have a very productive and fruitful workshop.
Thank you, Mario. Thank you, Professor Stefano. So, as you all know, this event was planned to be in past June at IST in Lisbon. As you can see from a figure that it is about to be shown, so our campus of our university is surrounded by the city. Unfortunately, this time it is not possible to explore the historical, the culture and tourist wealth of Lisbon and Portugal, and become familiar with traditional Portuguese hospitality. I sincerely hope you will be able to visit us in a very near future. Meanwhile, we have selected some videos from Lisbon, Portugal, which will be projected just before of the beginning of each section. I hope you enjoy. So the 9 European workshop on the seismic behavior of irregular and complex structures will continue the successful 3-annual series of workshops started back in 1996. In fact, from 1996, every 3 years, a cycle of workshops devoted to studying the seismic response of irregular structures takes place under the sponsorship of the Working Group 8, or of the European Association of Earthquake Engineering. You have here all the places where the workshops have already taken place. Professor Di Stefano have already referred all these places and the data. So now we are virtual in Lisbon. It's what we can do. So starting from 10-11 workshop, which took place in Haifa, Israel, the proceedings are published as monographs in the Springer Geotechnical, Geological, and Earthquake Engineering series. This time, for this event, a first online version of the proceeding was prepared and sent to all the attendees to support their workshop participation. Afterwards, the papers will be resubmitted, revised again, and published on the 4th proceedings book to be issued within the framework of the Springer series that I just mentioned. I trust the workshop will provide a platform to discuss and then exchange ideas, as well to gain new insights on the challenge of irregular and complex structures. The topics addressed include criteria for regularity, the seismic design and assessment and retrofit of irregular and complex structures, and soil structure interaction of this type of structures. So beyond an excellent number of interesting papers on this topic, and as Professor Di Stefano has already referred, the workshop comprehends 2 invited lectures, a session devoted to irregularities in reinforced concrete buildings, which will be today, just after the opening ceremony, and another tomorrow dedicated to the seismic response of masonry buildings, aggregates in historical centers. Finally, I'd like to list the main recommendations for the Q&A sessions of the workshop. Just to be clear, I think this is probably one of the most important rules for these different sessions. So, a live Q&A session will follow each paper presentation, moderated by the session chair and co-chair. When the presentation is finished, the session co-chair, opens the Q&A session and selects raised questions to the speaker by Zoom chat or by Zoom raise hand. The participants in the Q&A session should identify themselves. This is important to understand who is asking. If you are using the Zoom chat, please write your name, organization, and your question on the chat. So, on behalf of the organized committee, I warmly thank to all the contributors, the authors, the event speakers, and I sincerely hope that this workshop will offer productive discussion. Thank you so much for joining us. So now, and to register the moment, I'd like you to invite you to the workshop photo, okay? So our photographer is ready, I hope. And what you have to do now, if you feel like it, is switching on your camera or upload your photo, okay? And smile, okay? So in a few seconds, our photographer will take the workshop photo and later, of course, we'll share with you. So I'll start to count down, okay? 5, 3, 2, I missed one, sorry. 1, now smile. Okay, you have great smiles. Thank you for joining us. Okay, so with this, we close the opening ceremony. Thank you so much for everyone to joining us. We'll project a film of Lisbon for you to feel as if you were here with us. And the invited lecture will start at 11, as it is in the program. So at 11, we'll come back for the invited lectures. So please have a lot of fun and participate. Thank you.
As a travel destination, the riverfront city is as rich and varied as the country's long history. From the ruins of a Moorish castle perched atop one of the city's 7 hills to a sidewalk cafe snuggled against an English Visigoth wall, remnants of Lisbon's colorful past are everywhere. While Western Europe's oldest city has taken steps to overhaul its transportation system, modernize its downtown area, and revamp its waterfront, it's the charm of Lisbon's oldest neighborhoods that most attract visitors. Number 10. Vasco da Gama Bridge. Completed in 1998, the Vasco da Gama Bridge is a modern feat of engineering. Named after Portugal's most famous explorer, it was built to alleviate Lisbon's traffic congestion. Stretching for nearly 11 miles across the Tagus River, the cable-stayed bridge is so long that its builders had to take the Earth's curve into consideration when constructing it. But as an expense of $1.1 billion, the 6-lane bridge is expected to stand for more than a century, ensuring that visitors can experience its breathtaking architecture for generations to come. Number 9. Cristo Rei Statue. Inspired by Brazil's iconic Christ the Redeemer statue, the Cristo Rei statue rises up from a hill overlooking the Tagus River. The massive monument was built to express gratitude to God for allowing Portugal to escape the worst horrors of World War II. It was opened to the public in 1959. Standing with arms outstretched, the Christ figure is set atop a tall arch with a rectangular observation deck at the base. An interior elevator takes visitors to a platform beneath the figure's feet for panoramic views of Lisbon. Number 8. Praça do Comercio. One of the star attractions of Lisbon's downtown waterfront, the Praça do Comercio is an expansive plaza flanked by elegant 18th century buildings. Portugal's Dom José I made his home here until the earthquake of 1755 reduced it to rubble. Locals still refer to the square as the Yard of the Royal Palace. A monument featuring the king on horseback dominates the center of the plaza. A large triumphal arch completed in 1873 anchors the northern side. Hotels, shops, and restaurants located nearby make the sunny square a popular destination for visitors exploring Lisbon's scenic waterfront. Number 7. Monument to the Discoveries. The mammoth white stone monument to the Discoveries stands like a ship with sails unfurled at the shoreline of the Tagus River, where many of Portugal's most important voyages of exploration began. It was built as a memorial to Dom Henrique, who later became known as Prince Henry the Navigator. The prince, who ushered in Portugal's Age of Discovery, is featured at the prow of the stone sculpture with other national heroes and explorers lined up behind him. Number 6. Rossio Square. There's no better place in Lisbon to soak up the local atmosphere than at Pedro IV Square, Lisbon's most famous plaza. Located in an elegant district in central Lisbon, the Rossio has been the city's main gathering place since the Middle Ages. During the Inquisition of the 16th century, the square served as a setting for public executions. Today, it's the place where friends meet up to enjoy a beverage at a cafe or bar before attending the National Theatre located on the north side of the square. Number 5. Lisbon Oceanarium. One of the best modern tourist attractions in Lisbon, the Oceanarium was built as part of the improvements the city made when it hosted the 1998 World Exposition. Located in northeast Lisbon, the Oceanarium is the largest indoor aquarium in Europe. It's organized into 4 unique habitats, with each representing a different ocean. In addition to all manner of sea life ranging from sharks to penguins, flora from each ecosystem are represented as well. Number 4. Jeronimos Monastery. With its Gothic and Moorish influences, the striking architecture of the Jeronimos Monastery makes it a must-see attraction for anyone visiting Lisbon. Located in the city's riverside Belem district, the monastery is a piece of carved stone portals, latticework ceilings, and windows with tracery set upon delicate mullions. In the nave of the church is the tomb of Vasco da Gama, whose voyages to India made Lisbon a wealthy maritime city. Number 3. Tram 28. Most of the decades-old trolley cars that were once a primary mode of transportation in Lisbon are long gone, but visitors can still enjoy a ride in an antique streetcar on Tram Line 28. The historic Elétrico takes passengers through the city's oldest sectors, past some of Lisbon's most popular sites. Tourists often take Tram 28 to the hilltop Sao Jorge Castle to take in the panoramic views, but the line is used by locals for their daily commutes too. Number 2. Sao Jorge Castle. One of Lisbon's oldest treasures, Sao Jorge Castle is situated at the top of a hill in the Alfama district. The castle evokes the period when Lisbon was under Moorish rule, but the site was fortified centuries earlier when the Romans were in power as well. After driving out the Moors in 1147, the Portuguese used the castle as a royal residence until the early 16th century. Climbing the ramparts is a must-do activity in Lisbon, and it's easy to understand why. The views from the parapets and battlements are simply breathtaking. Number 1. Belem Tower. Belem Tower, also known as the Tower of St. Vincent, sits on what was once an island in the Tagus River. Dating back to 1515, the imposing tower was built both to defend Lisbon from invaders and to welcome the city's friends. Built in the Age of Discovery, the 4-story limestone tower has a bastion connected to it. The bastion had space for 17 cannons that could fire long-range shots. A statue of Our Lady of Safe Homecoming, designed to protect sailors on their voyages, faces the river.